All right, guys, it's Tim O'Connor. Once again, this is bonus content for the internet viewers. Guys, once again, I'm out earning a buck, making a living, but I did take some time to record a video for you. And guys, this video goes out on a free solution on WYSL, WACK. Remember, guys, even though it's recorded, I'll be in the chat. Likes, comments, shares, all those things are important. Thanks for joining me, and I will be right back to introduce the show. All right. Hello and welcome to this edition of A Free Solution. It is Thursday, November 18th, 2021. I am your host, Tim O'Connor. This is going out all over the interwebs. This is going out on the air on WYSL in the beautiful Rochester, New York. It's going out on WACK in Newark a little bit later in the day. And once again, this is your libertarian lunchtime politics. And today, guys, it's me, Tim O'Connor. I share this platform with the amazing, the incredible Larry Sharp, the interesting, intellectual Kevin Wilson. Andrew Hollister has made guest appearances. Rich Pertel, Sean Hanning. Guys, we are bringing it to you. And guys, I try to bring this up every week, but a special thanks going out to a radio station like WYSL, who literally is willing to put this on the air at prime time, man. Everybody checks out the radio during lunch. And so we just want to make sure that we appreciate it. So guys, basically, I want to be honest about something. A number of years ago, I think it was probably about 3 years ago, I kind of gave up on what most people would call the mainstream media. Okay, I got rid of my cable. I decided that, first of all, and you've heard me say it before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it over and over again. The games that they play with people's minds, it bothers me. So a few years ago, I gave up your CNNs and your Foxes of the world, and I figured that I could still maintain a connection to current events. And I do, in fact, believe that without those things, without them getting my money, I've been able to manage to keep connected to current events. I may not be, first of all, a lot of times I'm not interested. I don't get interested in every emotional detail of politics, of the political sphere. I'm very interested in politics, and there's a difference. But I tend to stay away from that emotional, thought-provoking desire for reaction style entertainment, info nation media that's offered on the CNNs and the Foxes of the world. And there's a reason for it. I figure if it's important enough, people will actually be talking about it. Real people will be talking about it on social media. So, and they do, guys, and the important issues of the day make it to social media, make it to my text messages, make it to my messaging on Tim O'Connor for Liberty and on my regular Facebook page. I talk about politics pretty regularly. I try to post interesting and funny memes, and I try to have conversations. I think a lot of people get into arguing. I don't even like debates, right? Political debates. We looked at the last cycle's presidential debates, and honestly, that first one that Chris Wallace did was, and I did watch that, guys. It was literally taking the buzzwords of the day, not asking them anything about policy, and hoping that they would get into a fight and that they would score ratings off of a something that was supposed to be more important than this day-to-day dystopian arguing that everybody's doing. But it wasn't, and it was embarrassing. Okay, and it was embarrassing, and I was disappointed that they didn't let Jo Jorgensen on the debate stage. Not that I held any real hope for it. She didn't have the kind of money, she didn't have the kind of background, and she didn't have a track record of running for office. Like, I know she was the vice presidential candidate for someone else, and I think she was a really nice person, and she really espoused libertarian philosophy well. But there was no hopes of her getting on the debate stage, and I think Larry Sharp has a plan to deal with that though for him, and I like it. I like it a lot. So you guys got to check out Larry and see his plans for getting on the debate stage in this gubernatorial election that's coming up next year. Um, so, anyways, when we get into this mainstream media and we find things to talk about now, obviously, one of the things that everybody is talking about, and guys, it is a it's it it's an incredibly important subject, though I don't know exactly why, right? We've got to talk about this Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Kevin's talked about it. I'm sure Larry's touched on it. I get confused by some of the amounts of arguing that go on with this Kyle Rittenhouse thing. Yes, a 17-year-old kid used a weapon to defend himself, and people are saying, okay, I one thing that I don't get, one thing I really don't understand is how people are making it a BLM issue. And guys, if you want to reach out to me and try to explain that to me, I think that would be fine. I know there were BLM protests going on, but I don't think that the people that are truly invested in BLM and Black Lives Matter, and guys have heard me talk about this stuff before, and I don't know that I have perfect optics on it, but people that are invested in BLM and want Black Lives to Matter are not necessarily the ones that are burning down places like Kenosha and smashing up car lots and damaging property. Though maybe on some level I'm wrong about that, but those protests in Kenosha were anything but peaceful. And the violence that kid was exposed to, and yeah, he was carrying a gun. Guess what? That was legal. Guess what? Okay, he didn't carry the gun across state lines. Even if he had, even if he had broken those laws, that didn't negate his right to self-defense. That's an absolute libertarian fact. That's a human rights fact, that none of those things negated his right to self-defense. And Kevin and I did a little spoof on a little bit on it on Friday's show. And guys, I don't understand where one of the things I guess that got me to being a libertarian, where my conservative friends and I may differ, this law and order issue. Okay, that prosecutor put on display prosecutorial tactics that have been going on forever. Okay, they mislead, they misdirect, they violate a defendant's rights, and they'll do it, guys. And I'm not saying there's not good prosecutors out there, but I don't know. When we see this prosecutor basically violating this kid's rights, basically trying to imply, right, that his silence made him guilty. Guys, not enough news. That is something that every single person should be very comfortable talking about. Okay, that is a violation of his rights to try for a prosecutor to imply or ask a jury to infer a defendant's guilt because he didn't want to talk about the issue without a lawyer present. That's ridiculous. That guy's walking all over the Constitution. And guys, people making it out that the judge is some sort of crusty old like clown, because everything in our society has been politicized. The way that this case is being handled by the judge is one of the least politicized things that I've seen. All right, so the Kyle Rittenhouse case is entirely politicized, much to the detriment of the real issues here of Black Lives Matter and what the kid did. So guys, like, I don't know, I was thinking about it today and I was talking to somebody, and it's like, even, and again, we'll get to that issue of even if the things that Kyle did, like getting the gun to the protest, even if those were technically illegal, which they weren't, didn't at any point negate his right to self-defense. Ever. It doesn't happen that way. It's like, if you're driving an uninspected car, maybe this is a bad analogy, but I'm going to dump it on you guys anyway. All right. If you're driving an uninspected car and somebody plows into you from behind, you are not guilty of getting hit because you're driving an uninspected car. That's a level of the infraction that we're talking about. If you are attacked, you have the natural law, the natural right to defend yourselves. And as a matter of fact, that right extends to defending others from imminent harm. So whether you guys, so where do where do the questions come from on these things? Like this is and the questions, and this is always the issue, guys. The questions come from politics. They you understand how they rule us when you see how they divide us. They know that some people are afraid of guns. They know that some people don't understand guns, and guys, that prosecutor put on full display what he did technically should be illegal, most likely is illegal. Brandishing a weapon with your finger on the trigger in front of people, whether it's loaded or not, with no reason to consider it an act of defense. Okay, to point a gun at people is brandishing a weapon. It's that in and of itself shows that guy doesn't know anything about guns, and also that is technically illegal. Guys, we're coming up on a break. It's Tim O'Connor. We'll talk a little bit more about Kyle Rittenhouse, but I got some fun stuff to go in. I'm burnt on politics. Be right back. Bonus content for you internet viewers. Leave in the comments, if you will, if you're watching this video, anywhere I share this to, okay? If you're watching this on A Free Solution, if you're watching it at Tim for Liberty, I'm probably going to share it to my personal page. I'm probably going to share it around a little bit. Leave in the comments whether you think Kyle Rittenhouse, and you don't have to think if he's guilty or not, okay? Whether he's going to get convicted or not. It may be an interesting timing issue, and we may have lots of answers. So anyways, just please do something like that. Leave, like, comment, share, say hi to me. I'll say hi back. I'm out chasing the almighty dollar, but is Kyle Rittenhouse going to be convicted? And we may not, we may already have an answer by the time this show airs, but please do it. Thank you. And, bear with me on this next pause because it's an editing pause. All right, guys, remember that our sponsors are also brave, like WISL and WACK. They are participating in local New York State libertarian politics, and they're helping spread that message. So it's important to reach out to them and let them know that this show has value to you and that it is an important part of your day. And buy something from them. Let them know you appreciate their sponsoring the show. Please keep them in mind. And if you guys want to sponsor this show, or you want to get some advertising space on this show, let me know. Let Kevin know. We'll put you in touch with the guy who will set you right up so fast your head will spin. And guys, will help you promote your products. That's plain and simple. So before the break, I was talking about the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing, and I don't know how much farther we should go with it. The basic issue is does a kid 17 years old have the right to self-defense? Can we infer from his actions that he was an aggressor, that he was not an aggressor, that he tried to escape the situation? I've seen those videos. Okay, all those videos are all online. You don't need to watch CNN for that stuff. You don't need to see your edited versions of anything, guys. We've seen ABC, CBC, CNBC, all of these shows offer edited versions of phone calls, edited versions of videotape to support their narrative and to get you to react to their to watch their TV show longer, to stay tuned through the commercials. And guys, I know that that's hard. And I know that what I'm asking you to do is the exact opposite of that. And that may be a problem. That may not be a successful business strategy, but I don't care. Okay. It's time to step outside that box, that this reactive nonsense that they keep dumping on us. All right. Trust me, I did it. I managed to do it. But the issue again, what Kyle Rittenhouse did is sad. Okay. What happened in Kenosha and what happened all over the country is sad. Okay. And let's not forget, lest we forget what sparked these incidents: the COVID lockdown and the George Floyd incident. Okay. Let's not forget those things. It's important to remember what sparked this summer of violence. Okay. What sparked this whole issue: government overreach at its very heart. And I hate to say this, I'm glad the guy got convicted, but I'm pretty sure that guy mostly, Derek Chauvin, mostly followed protocol in arresting George Floyd. And I think that that's something he maybe went too far. And I think that police officers I know would have definitely handled that situation better. And I do know police officers, and they're very valuable members of my community. And I think that they are, in fact, we're saddened by that. They said so. Okay, so that's a reality. So we can't forget what sparked this stuff. Government overreach at its heart laid out a pile of tinder. George Floyd incident made it explode. Now, is there underlying issues like BLM capitalized on that moment in time, but were those issues that they're trying to capitalize on, were they important? And I think that number one, I'm always willing to have that discussion. Number two, I think we should all be willing to have that discussion. And I've tried to, in several of my other shows, make the case that life in densely populated urban areas, and guys, I'm from upstate New York, central, beautiful, rural upstate New York. Life in densely populated urban areas is different. So a lot of us may not understand those issues from Section 8 housing to zoning to lack of economic opportunity in densely populated areas to the war on drugs. Okay, guys, when you see a prosecutor pull tricks on a 17-year-old kid on national TV, okay, when he knows this is being broadcast, you can bet your bottom dollar that prosecutors are running games on kids all the time to get convictions. No less than the vice president of the United States has admitted that she did stuff like that. And that is a reality. Okay. So it's time for everybody to wake up that convictions aren't necessarily what it's all about. And when it comes to the war on drugs, the way that they get those convictions can be problematic, just like what this guy tried to do to Kyle Rittenhouse. There's a direct analogy to that. This guy put it on display. Okay. So that, guys, is a free solution. When we start realizing that there are systems in place that we can improve, okay? One of the ways we can improve our system in our densely populated urban areas is to end the war on drugs, period, okay? Change it up, decriminalize a lot of this stuff. Decriminalize doesn't mean legalize and encourage, okay? It's not the same thing. I think that some libertarians would go further than I would, but let's stop throwing kids in jail over bags of weed, which I think we probably accomplished. But let's stop throwing kids in jail for finding a very profitable way to make a living in the city. But let's figure out a way to fix it. And I think that if we listen to guys like Larry Sharp, Kevin Wilson, myself, even Andrew Hollister, all of us have creative ways to create better solutions. And of course, more economic activity, more freedom. It even goes to zoning, guys. They zone businesses out of these residential areas. And so that takes economic opportunity away from people, period. But I want to change it up, guys. I was talking last week, I mentioned it. I've been watching a show, or I watched a show that I thought was pretty interesting, pretty funny. And it had lots of great, I want to say political commentary that has probably been true about the power dynamics in politics forever. Okay. So when I was watching this show on Hulu, and see, guys, I don't even have regular cable. I have Hulu, I have Netflix, I have ways of staying in touch, but I don't need to be right up on top of the latest show because I don't care about it. And then when a great show like The Great comes along, I can kind of watch it and rewatch it. And I've been watching this show about Catherine the Great and how she came into power. And I freely admit that, number one, I don't know a lot about Russian history, but number two, I am 100% convinced, and I did some research on it, that they have taken liberties with the way that history played out. But let's talk about this Catherine the Great and how she came into power and how she sacrificed everything to get her husband to grant her the throne. And first of all, there's lots of great stories, but one of the most impactful moments, okay, is her and Peter are arguing over something, and they want to shape the narrative of a potential takeover of the palace. And so basically, Catherine says to her counselor, the first lie always wins. The first lie always wins. And it was an epic and very telling point for me, because I regularly talk about the zeitgeist and how when we tell a story or when the mainstream media pushes a narrative, the first lie survives. All right. we're still occasionally we're still arguing over. Let's start with I did a little uh, question and answer on my Facebook page, right? Like, what are some social media narratives that survive? I wanted to see what people said. And of course, a lot of my friends and you guys like out there listening to me, guys, and I appreciate everything. Like, it's important. A lot of my friends, the first thing that they said was that Democrats and Republicans care about you. All right. And I thought that that was a great way to start that conversation. But there's some other big lies, the first lie winning kind of concept that I want to explore that a little bit on today's show. And hopefully we can have some fun with it. Again, this was right on my Facebook page. I just did this little deal, this little narrative. And it was pretty interesting. So I got a whole bunch of comments on it, and so I want to talk about it. All right, the first guy up said the government is working for the middle class and the poor. And guys, we can talk about this one all day. Does the government work at all for the middle class anymore? And do they work at all for the poor? And does social media and does actual media, guys, because tying into this lie, right, or this issue, we saw a well-known, reputable, and I'll check the source after the break, but I want to get the source right. But we saw a relatively popular paper come out with the notion that inflation is good for you. And guys, this may take up the whole entire next segment. The lie and the baffling ability for someone to say that is amazing. Okay. Inflation is not good, particularly for the middle class and particularly for the poor. And I can tell you who inflation benefits, and inflation benefits people that are incredibly leveraged, whose absolute revenue goes up in response to inflation. So follow this down the road, okay? If you're incredibly leveraged, i.e., a big business that borrowed a lot to invest in something, okay, and you can keep pace with raising your prices as the dollar loses value, loses buying power, the money that you leverage, and leveraged means borrowed, okay? The money that you leverage technically becomes easier to pay back, okay? That was the premise of the article, okay? But, and I'll come back with the source. But the premise of the article is that it's good for you and I, which if you're middle class or you're poor, and I presume a lot of people that listen to this show, like myself, who presents on this show, are middle class, working class, hardworking men and women doing the job and exploring a better way to look at politics. That's why you're here. Guys, we're coming up on another break. I'll come back with the source. I'll go back into that article, but we're going to work our way down through this whole list of social media myths and how the first lie wins and how we can take steps to say, not react to that first lie, to get real information. And guys, you can get real information from the internet, from your friends, from your own brain. That's one thing that not enough people do. All right, guys, it's Tim O'Connor. It's your Thursday host for A Free Solution. And once again, thanking you for being here. And please take a moment to check out our sponsors. Bonus content. You guys get to check out my video editing breaks so that this show goes off flawlessly. I want to make my producer Bob's job as easy as possible, because literally I'm a technological robot sometimes. But anyways, thanks for checking it out. Remember, Kyle Rittenhouse, guilty or not guilty? Post it in the comments. All right, guys, it's Tim O'Connor. It's Thursday. It's just a hardworking redneck guy living his dream of being a radio announcer. And guys, again, I'm telling you, I'm having a blast talking to you, going out on a radio in a major metropolitan area, and also in Newark, New York, which is also amazing and awesome. Not Newark, New Jersey, guys. All right, don't mess that up. All right, that's a big deal. That's a big deal to people from New York. We don't want Newark, New York confused with Newark, New Jersey. So it's all over the southern tier. It's all over Western New York. If you're catching this and you want to swap hours with our radio show and get this free solution on your radio station, I think that things like that can be worked out. So please do it. Because remember, also, I share this platform with Kevin Wilson, with Larry Sharp, who guys is running for governor. He's trying to raise money. If you can help him out, I say do it. Okay. So guys, before the break, we were talking about this article that was posted it's called The Intercept. And like, I don't, and probably Kevin talked about this. I watch the show when I'm at work, but I listen to the show when I'm at work, but I don't always catch everything. But maybe Kevin covered it. Maybe Larry covered it. I don't know, but I'm covering it. This guy, John Schwartz, okay, wrote on November 10th. Inflation is good for you. Don't panic over milk prices. Inflation is bad for the 1%, but it helps out almost everyone else. Guys, he's so wrong, okay? First of all, his first statement, don't panic over milk prices. Literally, the only people that are panicking over milk prices, or at least concerned about milk prices, because I don't panic over everything, but are the middle class and the poor people. It's like his very first sentence is wrong, embarrassingly wrong, incredibly wrong, okay? If your milk costs more, this guy would probably say drink less of it, but that's not the issue, right? It obviously, you feel it. If your gas costs more, you feel it. The 1% does not feel it. The people that benefit are people that are highly leveraged in manufacturing and businesses that are growing right now, where the product is much in demand. Most likely the 1%. Now, there are some upper middle class people that inflation can benefit too, because they're benefiting from a rapidly growing rise in prices, okay? And the devaluation of the dollar can benefit the money that they've leveraged. Again, read borrowed. And that's one of the arguments for borrowing money on the national federal level, okay? That when we pay it back, we'll have devalued the dollar so much that it's going to be really easy to pay back. All right, there's so many problems with that I can't even go into them all. I want to have a little bit more fun than that today. So anyways, inflation does not, your wages, they already raised the minimum wage. Your wages are not going to go up as fast as inflation. And guys, there's another story out there that I want to cover on a different day. Maybe I'll throw it at Kevin on Friday, guys, if you join Kevin and I on Friday. But that basically already inflation this year has eaten up all the wage increases, that all the minimum wage increases that basically, if you net the things out, you can take a look at how much has payroll gone out, how much has expenses gone up, and then you can say, guess what? It didn't work. That's a reality, okay? So all the minimum wage increases have been eaten up by inflation. So anyways, getting back to, guys, and I want to keep this, I'm trying to keep this light, okay? But it's not going to be light, because the myths that survive on social media need to be dealt with. And you're not going to fix anybody that's spouting them per se, but perhaps if we have conversations with people, we can make it better. I don't know, but it's worth trying. I think it's worth trying. Anyways, so one that I posted that got a reasonable amount of responses, likes, and a few comments, that I think is a lie. And I think that if we debunk it and we talk about it and we explain it to people, like, one of the myths that we see is that the president, one of the myths that the mainstream media perpetrates and perpetuates, is that the president has no effect on gas prices. Where they're telling the truth about that one is that the president has no direct effect on gas prices. Okay. He doesn't say, hey, Exxon, lower your prices. Okay. Hey, you know, he does say, hey, Saudi Arabia, pump more oil. So what do you think? What is he saying when he says, hey, Saudi Arabia, pump more oil, please? Okay. What is he saying? So even the president, after he says in the mainstream media, after they say that they have no direct effect on gas prices, but he says, hey, Saudi Arabia, could you please pump more oil? Please. What do you think that he's actually saying? Okay, he knows, all right, that gas prices are going up. He knows he can potentially, if Saudi Arabia starts pumping more oil, gas prices are going to level off, right? So he already knows that he does have the ability to affect gas prices and that he likely does. So gas prices, like anything else, anticipated demand, anticipated supply, current sales. Okay, that's how we figure out gas prices. Okay, and there is a factor of they are highly monitored, if not directly regulated, gas companies about what kind of profits they can make. So if they make exorbitant percentage wise profits, every single like control regulation person in the Congress, and this includes Republicans, you guys, like, and some conservatives even are going to be like, yeah, we should punish, gas companies and make sure that they don't make excess profits. Okay, guys, like, I'm going to tell you that's not the best way to do it. One area where I really like Donald Trump, and Donald Trump also affected gas prices, and he knew he would, and we all know he did, okay, was local supply and anticipated growth in local supply of gasoline and gas related energy products. Okay, that helped maintain lower prices, because if these people that are purveying gas can anticipate consistent regular pricing and at a low end of the scale, and not have to worry about, guys, guess what gets unloaded in container ships? Okay, guess what gets affected by, like, okay, oil, right? Okay, everything gets affected by these slowdowns that we're seeing. So that's one of the many things that's an issue. And I know the gas system's a little bit different, and there's local spots, like there's local simple gas ports where barges of oil pull up and they download the oil into big tanks, and then they start boiling it off to make gas. Okay, I get all that, but it's still affected by the shipping problems. All right, so it's a myth to say, when people say economic wizards, okay, that stand up for the current administration that they now love, okay, that the big federal government says, oh, the president doesn't have any direct effect on gas prices. Okay, he doesn't have any direct effect, but he's begging Saudi Arabia to pump more oil so gas prices will stabilize. Okay, he knows. Okay, he knows. They all know. The president and his policies, when he cancels a pipeline, all right, when he says we're going to stop drilling more, when we're going to work on being energy interdependent because the world likes us better that way. All of those things affect gas prices. Absolutely, unequivocally affect gas prices. Period. All right. So the president does, in fact, whether you like it or not, and I don't, he does. His policies can directly or indirectly affect gas prices. That's real. Period. All right. So let's get another one that I went through on my page. All right. One of my guys, wise guy, always says that he always busting libertarians, but he's like, one of the myths that persists on social media is that libertarians have great ideas. He's wrong. That guy's a total communist. Don't worry about it. He's totally wrong. All right. And so some of these themes are going to be kind of repetitive. All right. But yet let's explore a lot of them. Okay. Like let's talk about some of the other things that came up on my page. All right. Big corporations are evil, and government is some sort of protector or equalizer against the rich. That's a comment from one of my friends, and that's a myth that persists. Well, for sure, that's a myth that persists, right? That's one of those things that it persists. It's not accurate. And what we're seeing right now, this one's like a big, huge package that's got to get unpacked on several different levels. Big corporations are not evil. They can be evil. They can make mistakes. Google who paid the largest criminal fine in history if you guys are curious about some of the mistakes that they make and how they cover up for them. Enron, some of their deals, even though Enron, maybe that's something that Kevin and I should do a deep dive on someday, because Enron, all the guys that got charged and convicted also got unconvicted and released. I don't think any of them served any amount of meaningful jail time. And so whatever they were charged with wasn't actually a crime. And whatever they were convicted of, they basically got away with. And hopefully I'm presenting that accurately. There's a little piece of my memory that says maybe I'm not. So anyways, so the myth that big corporations are evil and government is some sort of protector or equalizer against the rich. And so to continue unpacking that, right? Big corporations are motivated by profit. Big corporations are motivated by the making money. Big corporations are motivated to take the path of, let's call it the path of least resistance when it comes to making money. And so as it's becoming ever more apparent, big corporations, well, not necessarily evil, aren't necessarily our friends, because what they're successful in doing is buying regulations, guys. Don't tell anybody, but they buy regulations so that they don't have to compete with little guys trying to grow their way into their market. Guys, looking forward to Meta, because that's going to be the Facebook begging for regulations. All right, guys, we're coming. We'll be right back. I went a little long. Thank you all very much. Bonus content for you, the internet viewer. It's me, Tim O'Connor. I'm doing Coffee and Freedom again on Saturday. It might actually be a really interesting one. Got a guy that is a libertarian, and he's going to be running against AOC. And I believe I have, from the Rochester area, Jose Pio, who is an anti-mandate Democrat. And I think that he just won re-election. So those two people have tentatively committed to Saturday morning at 8:30 on at Tim O'Connor for Liberty. I'll broadcast it to a free solution. Kevin Wilson joined me last week, had a blast. All right, I'm going to do the pause for the edit, and all right, welcome back once again to A Free Solution. And your host, your Thursday host, Tim O'Connor. Guys, just a quick reminder, if you want to check out some interesting stuff, I do a little gig on my Facebook page called Coffee and Freedom. I do it on Saturday mornings. Check out for notifications, like, comment, share on that. I have some really interesting guests coming up this weekend. Before the break, we were talking about myths that persist in social media. And that means in our friends' minds, guys, like that's actually a reality. Like these myths exist in our friends' minds. So the notion that big corporations are evil and that government is some sort of protector or equalizer against the rich, that is a big one. We were trying to unpack it. We're never going to unpack all of it. But because big corporations and government are run by men who have, and women who have, lusts and desires for power and riches, they do occasionally act evil. The truth is that, and we're seeing it more and more every day, guys, that they're becoming complicit. Now, another myth that persists, and this is one that is going to be, I would have to say, I'm not a scientist. I believe that it's true. I am familiar with how to analyze statistics. And I am familiar with the mindset of people that want to divide us and therefore rule us. So if people would have just followed orders, this COVID stuff would be all over now. That is a myth. in my opinion, and in my opinion, that the following of orders, it would have we followed the orders. We shut down our economy. We closed our schools. We came up with contact tracing, and we fully participated in the best that we could do, in attempt to mitigate this virus. I don't think that the vaccine strategy has been particularly successful on several levels. It's not. I'm not anti-vaccine. I want to be very clear about that. Kevin and I may talk about a little bit more about this whole multiple mRNA shots. That there is perhaps science that says that is not a good idea. So maybe check us out on Friday. Maybe we'll save that for next week. But anyways, right. If we had just followed orders, what happened was, and especially in New York State, okay, in response to a legitimate emergency, the legislator granted the executive in charge all sorts of extra executive powers with and guys, I don't care. Once again, you've heard me say this before. I don't care that it was the Democrats. They're wrong too. Okay. I do care that it was the Democrats. I do care that it was one party, but I'm going to tell you that the first vote and the conclusion, regardless of the promises, was only 6 of your legislators in New York State voted against granting extended authoritarian powers to the executive of New York State. Now that it's changed from Cuomo to Hochul, nothing else has changed. She's making executive orders every chance she gets. She's authoritarianly lecturing us on about what we're supposed to do. And then there's always the threat. She makes the threat every time, and she's trying to come off as nice and caring and compassionate. But there's always the threat of, if you don't comply, we will have to up the ante. We will have to take it a step further. And that's constant. Okay. And I don't know, man. Maybe it is time to leave New York, like millions and millions of people already have. It's ridiculous. They don't ever back down. And so that is a myth. It does persist. Okay, people do in fact still say, if people had just followed orders, if people had just gotten vaccinated, if people had just worn their masks, none of that has proven out to be statistically, in my opinion, statistically accurate. Okay. Where they play games, the government and the media plays games with statistics, again, to get responses. So a couple of my friends are Trump fans and very anti-Biden. And so a repeating theme was the fixing of the election. And that in fact, the election wasn't fixed. That's a myth that persists. So what was in fact done, certainly kind of, it looked bad. I don't know, like they changed a lot of rules right before the election to allow write-in votes. And guys, I don't, well, there's so many things that come up out of a conversation like this, but we could talk about ballot harvesting and how mail-in votes is absolutely ripe and rife for ballot harvesting, period. Okay. And guys, like, I don't know, should you have to show ID when you vote? I've never had to show ID when I vote. I vote in a small town. Everybody, at least one person that's working the polls knows me. I've never had to show ID. They know me. My name is up most of the time before I even get the book to sign. So they know me. Okay. So, but should in places where, again, we get into densely populated areas that can sway an election, should there be some sort of ID, some sort of respect for the voting process, some sort of way to ensure that ballots aren't harvested? I think election fraud's pretty serious, guys. But was election fraud committed? I think they found isolated incidents of election fraud. Did they change a whole bunch of rules to make it easier for Joe Biden to get elected? Absolutely. Do ballot drops of 100,000 votes at 2 a.m. after the counting supposedly done, does that look suspicious? Yup. Is ballot harvesting hard to prove? Yeah. Also, yeah, it's really hard to prove, right? Especially with mail-in votes. How would you prove ballot harvesting with when everyone's mailing in their votes? How would you know? Again, guys, ballot harvesting is where somebody figures out a way to collect a massive number of votes, whether they're from every person or whether they get control of the ballot and they do the work themselves. Now, doing the work themselves, I mean fraudulently filling out ballot sheets. Certainly, does mail-in voting increase the possibility, mail-in voting on a massive scale? Does it increase the possibility of illegitimate elections? I I don't know how any sane person could deny it, right? Now, do people get disenfranchised by the inconvenience of voting? Also true. Very true. And I can tell you a story from my personal life. I'm doing a job an hour and a half away from my house. I like working. I enjoy it, but I have to drive 3 hours a day. So I leave my house early in the morning, get home sometimes late at night. Guess what? Guess what I'm about to admit to? I did not vote this last election cycle. I was gassed. I was tired. And that's it. I didn't do it. So there is, if I could have mailed in my vote, if it was easy, which I guess I probably could have, right? If we are losing votes there as well, young men and women who are working tough jobs are not going to vote. They're not going to. Would a good system of mail-in ballots facilitate everyone's voice being heard? People that are working tough jobs. And guys, I know you're going to be mad at me for not voting. I understand. I also am mad at people when they don't vote. So I get it, man. I'm mad at myself for not voting. But I will vote in the next election. But I didn't vote in this last election. It happens, man. And so when I see that as a conundrum and I see that mail in balloting is a possible solution, I want it to be legitimate. I want it to work. I get it. We are all sorts of people get disenfranchised for whatever reason. Mail in voting could be an adequate one. Guys, we're running out of time, man. I can't even believe it. Let me see if I can grab a couple more in a short period. Joe Biden is unifying us. He's not unifying us. Every single thing that everyone does anymore in politics is to divide us. Okay. Oh, one of my favorite ones. Real socialism hasn't been tried and would work. Okay. Guys. That's a myth that persists. Socialism as a governing structure it's a disaster. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining me. It's Tim O'Connor. It's a free solution. It's WYSL. It's WACK. It's a show I share with Larry Sharp, Kevin Wilson. Guys, thank you all for being here. We'll catch you again tomorrow.